Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I am doing a layout share, but I'm going to show you a couple of tricks when it comes to Cricut cuts. The layouts that I have created, and especially with the freshly baked collection, I've done some treatment to them so that the Cricut cuts don't quite look as flat as if you just leave them as a straight paper cut. When we use stickers and stamping, there's always texture involved, but when we do Cricut cuts, it's usually just with plain cardstock or even a pattern cardstock you can do it with, but you do need to dress them up a little bit, I think, to give them a bit more of a dimensional look. So I have 5 double page spreads to share with you today, and they're all out of the current October-December Close to My Heart catalogue, and I have used a mixture of my own designs and the digital art collections. These digital art collections are all SVG files, so you can use them with whatever cutting machine you have. I happen to have a Cricut, but what I have done, and you will see this throughout these, is taken elements of these and made my own layouts. This is the freshly baked one, and then I have the Christmas ones where I've used the digital art collection for that as well. The treatments that I'm going to share with you today are with the freshly baked ones. So let's get into it. I'm going to move this aside. We'll do a layout flip in a moment. You can see I've created my own titles, and I will list all the fonts that I've used in the description below, along with links to all the products that I've used. So to give these a little bit more dimension, I've gone ahead and I've cut some pieces out just to show you on screen. So I've cut out some of the cookies. I've got the rolling pin, and when you cut the rolling pin out, it cuts out 2 pieces, and I didn't change the color on this at all, so it's cut both of these out of Toffee cardstock. But what I'm going to do is flip that over so that you get a 2-toned rolling pin, and I'm going to bring in my Toffee ink and a blending brush. I'm also going to bring in some copy paper because you'll be able to see the results better if I put it on this than if I do it onto my all-purpose mat and work brown on brown. The all-purpose mat is wonderful for doing blending and things like that because you can just simply wipe it clean. This cookie here has been cut out of Shortbread, and these elements, as I said before, are out of Toffee. So I'm going to just ink up my blending brush. I like using blending brushes on these inks because it just comes in softer, and I'm coming off the edge of the piece of paper or the element that I'm working on, and I'm just gently bringing in a little bit of color to add a bit of texture to this. Now this ink dries back a little bit paler, so I can go in a little bit heavier than that, but I'm just going to keep checking it by putting it up against the white to make sure that I've got the desired effect that I want. I don't want him to look too burnt. So I'm hoping that you can see, I'll put his little white piece underneath. It is quite subtle so far, so I can build up some more colour again. It's better to go a little bit softer than in too heavy-handed or with a stronger colour and find that you don't like the end result. You can always add more colour. So I think that looks pretty good for now. With the rolling pin, I've actually inked up the handles to make this a little bit deeper. And then, because this is cut out the same way you can flip them, I'm just going to make sure that I get the right piece on the top. There is a little bit of a difference with this cut. So it's this way around, and I'm going to bring in just a little bit of colour onto the bottom part of the rolling pin. I'm not going to go all the way up to the top. So this gives it a little bit of depth and it looks like a little bit of a shadow onto the rolling pin. I'm just going to add a little bit more. So it is a bit of trial and just keeping on going in with the ink until you're happy with your end result. But it is worth the effort, I think, because it just gives these paper cut pieces that little bit of extra texture, and you can see that up against the white. This one has been cut from Shortbread paper. I'm using the dark sides of all the paper apart from that top of the rolling pin, and you can see I really love how this just gives a rounded effect to the rolling pin. But because I'm going in with Toffee ink onto Shortbread, I'm actually taking some of the ink off first before I go in to do my blending. I did try this with Shortbread ink, but it was quicker in the long run to just use Toffee and use a lighter hand. You can see that that's darkening up a little bit there. And you might be noticing that you can see a lovely little stencil sort of appearing here. You could use these as stencils all up and down your page, and that's enough darkness for that part. You will have seen with the title, I've also done it on the bottoms of the letters as well. So I'm just going to bring in one of the letters to show you. I'm not going to show you on every single letter, but just by bringing some of this ink in, it just brings life to the title, as well as what I've done to the Cricut cut shapes for the cookies and the rolling pin. So that's giving enough definition to just add a little bit of interest to the layout. Let's bring the double page spread back in so you can have a look. I'm going to move these pieces aside. What you might want to do when you're doing something like this is to leave it for a couple of hours after you've inked them up, because the ink does soak into the cardstock a little bit and it does lighten up, and you might want to treat it a little bit more. I've used the freshly baked paper here, and that's got an actual recipe on there for baking, and we all love baking at Christmas time. Gingerbreads and shaped shortbread and all those sorts of things are very popular in my home, so I know that I'm going to have some pretty cool photos to go on these ones. I've manipulated a couple of things with this SVG file. The official tester was actually official cookie tester on the SVG file, so I eliminated the cookie and I just used official tester. And this little banner here is actually from the layout that's in Freshly Baked. What you'll notice with a lot of the digital art collections that Close to My Heart does, there's usually a card. In this instance, there are two, so you can bring in the image and it brings in the entire thing ready for you to send off and cut on your Cricut machine. And there will also sometimes be scrapbooking layouts as well. So you can see this banner here, this little pennant here, I've taken from the scrapbooking layout. So you can bring these in and take things apart. You can see I've used the little banner that are in this one. I haven't used the entire layout at all. I've just taken the pieces that I wanted and added them to my own 12 by 12 scrapbooking layouts, and I've also brought in some of the biscuits as well. You can see there's a whole variety of little biscuits there that you can make, and a baking tray and the cooling rack as well as in here. So it's a really good set. The next layout that I'm going to show you actually uses pretty much the double page spread. I'm going to bring that in again and just talk about the differences that I have made. The cutout here down the side, I've reduced that to an 11.5 inch height so that it will cut easily on a 12 by 12 mat. On a Cricut machine, you can only cut to 12 inches wide, so it was easier to reduce it. You can have a 12 inch by 24 inch length mat, but it's still a bit tricky to get an entire 12 inch length how you want it cut in Design Space. I've created my own layered title. As I said, I'll put a link to all the fonts that I've used. They're all 100% free fonts. The milk bottle, I've used the glitter paper on that to give that a little bit of a sparkle. And you can see I've treated the cookies as well with a bit of blending, and also on the milk as well to give that a little bit of a dimensional look. I haven't cut out the big cookie jar here. I just wanted to have some photos, so I've manipulated that a little bit, and I've put my own colorways in here as well. You can swap out anything on these SVGs to cut them in pattern paper or whatever color cardstock you want. It's totally flexible to your own needs. I'm going to show you quickly how I did the milk bottle and the cookie. The cookie is pretty much the same. I used Toffee ink, but instead of staying just on one side, I actually brought the ink in, but I've gone around the outsides of them all just to give the highlight in the center part of the cookie. When we colour with tri-blend markers, we do shading because we've got the 3 different colours in a one marker, and that really helps with doing shading. But you can do those same sort of treatments to coloured cardstock. And because I started off with the toffee colour, I've already got a colour on there rather than having to add a whole heap of colour to a white cutout. So that's how that one works. The milk container, I wanted to show you how I did that one. I'm going to fold this over so that it's not going onto the toffee ink. And I've used linen ink. Now, while I'm doing this, it doesn't look like much is actually happening with the linen. It's a very light colour, but it's subtle enough. I didn't want to use a darker grey because we don't want to have dirty looking milk, but I did want to bring a little bit of colour in around the edges of the bottle just to give it a more 3D look. And then I'm going to put it on top of white, and you can see there's a subtle difference here. I'll just turn my light on, it's just got a little bit dull. There's a subtle difference here to the edges. As I said before, I don't want anything too dark. I just want a subtle difference on the milk bottle to give it a bit of dimension. So I'm just bringing back in the double page spread, and you can see that I've got that there. This is cut out, so there is some red glitter paper just stuck behind that. I didn't actually cut the whole milk bottle again. I just cut a little rectangle to put behind the word milk. And this Baking Memories, that's a title that I've created myself using the Cricut pen. So the Cricut actually draws with that as well. So you can create your own little text elements on there. And sprinkling around some of the freshly baked dots, and I did that on the other double page spread as well, just brings everything together. So now I'm going to show you the Christmas story layouts that I've created using the SVG cuts. This layout here, I've used the double page spread pretty much as is with the SVG file. Once you've uploaded your SVG files, this will be one image, but you can ungroup it, take things apart, and then manipulate it. I've decided that I wanted to use this pattern paper here as my base page and bring in white instead of the French vanilla look that is here. And instead of having Design Space cut out all of the little berries for me to stick on, I've actually cheated a little bit with this, and I've sliced the berry elements or the circle elements out of this base layer here, the scalloped edge with the white. I'm going to turn this over so you can see what I've done. I'll turn this one over as well. And you can see that I've just cut rectangles out of my red glitter paper so that I can just stick that on the back with washi tape, and that's holding that on. I could do it with glue if I wanted to, but washi tape made it very, very quick and easy to do. And they are showing through with the red glitter as the berries as intended. And then I put some little Carnation red liquid pearls around this as well to dress that up. So for me, that's a bit of a cheats way of not having to stick down all these little circles. It made things so much quicker. The other thing that I did was create a layered title from this Christmas Day. I used the slice tool to create these, and I've actually got a little Design Space tutorial on my April 2022 scrapbooking layout, the weather layouts that I'm doing with Julie Carrier. So I'll put a link to that. At the end of the video, I show how to create these layered titles. So I don't know if you can tell on camera, the Christmas Day, the gold glitter, is actually an overlay on top of a white base, and that makes it really easy to adhere. This next layout I've done using the digital art collection again from Christmas Story. I've used the baubles and I've used the bow from this mistletoe, so I can bring that in, ungroup it, and just select the bow and do that as well. I've used papers from the Christmas Story collection, and I've basically just cut rectangles of them to spread across 2 pages. And my baubles, these are gorgeous traditional looking baubles. They've been decorated with white glitter paper and also gold glitter paper. And I don't know if you can notice, but the stars that are cut out of this bauble, everything is sized, so if you enlarge it on your screen and it's as a group, it will will all cut out beautifully to fit, but there are 3 little stars here, so I decided that I would add those onto the layout as well. And once again, I've done another custom title. And finishing off the bottoms and the top area of some of these rectangles just brings the gold more into the layout, and the focus here is on the photos. And there's a little journaling mat here for me to write what the Christmas traditions are, or I could put another photo here, and then I could add flip-flaps if I wanted to create some hidden journaling. And then I just have one more layout to share with you. I think you can tell by now that this is my favorite paper in the pack. I really like the depth of this and the little icons. I've used one of the same baubles, and you can see I've got some gold embellishment thread. That was still available at the time of me doing this recording. It is while stocks last, as it's a retiring product. But what I've done is fed it through the topper and adhered it with some washi tape at the back, so no glue required. I've created another title with an overlay look with the gold glitter paper and a white base, and this tag is one of the SVG cuts, but I've changed it a little bit. I haven't got this top layer here, and I've used the offset tool to create a double layered tag, and then I've brought in the mistletoe and the bow to put on top, and I've used a gold ring. This is the circle that cuts out here just to finish off the tag underneath this. Just 2 baubles on this one, and the zip strips just complete the edges. And then of course I love the little bits of gold and the gold elements on these baubles. I hope you've enjoyed my walkthrough of these 5 layouts. These are all going up at a workshop and a weekend retreat that I'm going to, and I have cut some kits for these as well. But it was so much fun just to focus on the digital art collections and to enhance them a little bit with some inking and to bring in some other elements and create these layouts. Thank you so much for watching. Happy crafting, and bye for now.